Realize I forgot to turn my headset on that entire time, and I was explaining things, but none of you heard me. Ah, I feel so stupid. Okay, well basically let me go back and re-explain everything. So basically, I'm not gonna talk as much as I did just now as I was when you guys weren't able to hear me. So I'm just gonna summarize it. Basically, I think now Carolina, after all this QB news that's happening and stuff, I think that CJ Stroud is their best bet, and he's personally my favorite QB, and that's why I want them to trade up to number one so they can get their pick of the pack, and then don't have to worry about anybody else stealing their guy. But they get CJ Stroud. I've heard a lot of buzz. I actually saw something before starting this stream about about Jimmy Garoppolo possibly going, or there's like in the Texans, there's been like talk within the Texans about getting Jimmy to be a bridge, which makes me think possibly they really liked Anthony Richardson, so they're gonna stay where they're at. They can stay at number two and probably still get him, honestly. Well, yeah, they probably would, because I don't see the Colts going up to number one or the Panthers going up to number one just to get Anthony Richardson. So they go out, get their guy, Anthony Richardson. I'm having this play out as if they signed uh, Jimmy G. Uh, Obviously, Cardinals then go Will Anderson. I had Jalen Carter drop a little bit because of the stuff that happened. I don't think that will really make him drop too much, but in this I'm having him kind of have a drop because good players do drop every now and then, and basically then on to the obviously best QB available, Bryce Young. I'm not having him drop or not be picked number one because of his size. It's just I feel like personally Carolina should go CJ Stroud and yeah, Bryce Young to the Colts. They get their guy. They get their guy still. Didn't even have to trade up to number one to get him or even CJ. I mean, well, they would to get CJ, but they didn't have to get Bryce. Tyree Wilson. He's a developmental guy. Uh, he's kind of like Trayvon Walker was, and basically, I think that he will be. I think he'll be a top 10 pick, possibly. I mean, he could drop a little bit because he's still more of a developmental guy. He's not as good as Trayvon Walker coming out right out too, and he's a guy who you can play inside or outside. He'll help them on the D line. Jalen Carter dropped right to the Lions. He'll be a good fit on that defensive line next to Aiden Hutchinson and James Houston, I believe is the one that I'm thinking of that's there. Then Will Levis in this instance, because Jimmy goes to the Texans to be a bridge QB, you get Will Levis because you don't have that veteran. I'm forgetting which other QBs are on the market, but you get a QB in Will Levis. Josh McDaniels can mold him and have him be his own guy. Then Nolan Smith to the Falcons. I think he's gonna rise up boards. I mean that there's the injury stuff, but I think he's still a really good player, and he'll be a very good player in the NFL. I mean, a very fast edge player. Paris Johnson, then I think that the Bears could very much go offense. I mean, I think like that's the thing with them trading down to the nine is like they do need defense a lot, and Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are really really good, but they still need help on the O line to help protect Justin Fields, and they need wide receivers and tight ends, and or well they need just a lot of stuff. They need a lot of stuff all over, and that's why they have the number one pick. Um, the Eagles, then, I had going Devon Witherspoon. I'm surprised I didn't have him or any other cornerbacks go in the top 10. That's rarely going to be seen. But Devon Witherspoon falls right to them. They get a guy to replace James Bradbury, who could possibly even be better and eventually could become the number one guy over Darius Slay, even since Darius Slay's getting up there in age. Um, uh, Tennessee's been heard to be shopping uh, Derrick Henry, so they could possibly have. I don't think they'll get a first round pick for him. I mean, they might because he is a really good running back, but I don't know. And they don't have a QB falling to them. Now, it would be better probably for them in this draft at least to take round 2 guy, maybe like Hendon Hooker. But I don't think because the top 4 guys are going to be gone, you're going to be taking anybody just yet. So I'm going to have them here go. They kind of need O-line help, so I'm going to have them go Peter Skoronski here. He's a guy who you could try playing him at tackle, but it might be better to play him inside at guard. I personally think he's probably going to be better at guard. But they can try whatever they want. And yeah. Texans. The Texans is a interesting spot. It's an interesting spot. And I think here is a spot where you could see the top wide receiver going, which I think is JSN now. Quentin Johnston's really good too, but I think JSN is the top guy, in my opinion, now, especially after his combine, which he did. He had a really, really good combine, and I think that he will probably end up being the first one taken. I mean, you could see another guy taken before him, but I think he will be. They do need defensive help, which is why they also could go the route of defense. And Myles Murphy, somebody I look at. Lucas Van Ness would be a good pick. Will McDonald, maybe too early for him, or Felix, or BJ. I'm not going to attempt to say his name because I'll probably butcher it. Ade Tomua Adeboaro. I don't know. But I'm gonna stop butchering it. So but yeah, I think that this is a spot where you could see defense. They could go cornerback again. I mean, it would maybe make sense because Derek Stingley is only one side of the ball. If you can get another guy on the other side of him, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go Myles Murphy here. I think Myles Murphy, he's fallen a little bit for people, but I'm still high on him. A little bit of bias because I'm a Clemson fan, but also just in general, I think he's a good, solid edge rusher. And honestly, if he fell to 9 and the Panthers stayed at 9 and all the QBs are gone, I say they go Myles Murphy. But anyways, Myles Murphy to the Texans, solid pick. They get an edge rusher, helps their defense out a bit. It probably maybe would have been better to go like O-line or wide receiver because then you can get help for Anthony Richardson in the future and also now. But I go Myles Murphy here. New York Jets. This is a spot for QB, but it's seeming like they might get Aaron Rodgers. And this pick might end up being the Packers pick. And I'm going to have it actually be the Packers pick. Oh my gosh, look at that. It has it set up perfectly for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them just do this. What the hell? It had it accepted. That's funny. But we're going to do this as if they do the Aaron Rodgers trade, which is most likely going to be 2 or maybe just 1 first-round pick, but another, like a second or whatever. But here I'm only doing it as if it's a 2 first. I'm not doing a 2024 mock draft, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so I'm having this as if Green Bay trades Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, and that I would say means here I'm gonna have them go Lucas Van Ness. I think I've seen people draft him to them at 15. I think it would be a solid pickup for them, and it would be a very, very good pickup for them. It would help them on that D line. I mean, I feel like he's a guy who can play inside a little bit because he's got that power rush, but he's a little bit of a developmental guy, a little bit still. Not too much, but he's still a really solid player. I mean, he's going to be good for you no matter what in year 1 or year 2 or whatever. Patriots, I don't know why it says QB. I mean, maybe it means CB because they definitely could use a cornerback or a wide receiver. And because if they don't re-sign Jacoby Myers, that's not going to be good for them. But I think here they go JSN, first wide receiver off the board. I mean, you get a guy who can replace Jacoby Brissett, Jacoby Myers, if you don't want to re-sign him, or if you don't re-sign him because another team gets him. I think it's a pretty good fit. I mean, he's going to be a really good player. He's actually he's like in a way like a Danny Edelman or a Julian, or Danny Amendola or Julian Edelman. I just combined their names, but yeah, Jason to the Patriots. Now back to the Packers already again. Here, I think is a spot where it would be if they don't re-sign Allen Lazard, which it sounds like I saw something way earlier in the offseason, that they are. But I also saw something yesterday that said that the Chiefs and also the Ravens are interested in Allen Lazard, which he's a good player, so I don't blame them for being interested in him. And the Broncos have signed wide receiver Lee John Humphrey. Who is that? We'll discuss how. And it has discussed Scott Fitters. Hopefully the Panthers aren't too much in the Jackson market. I'd rather us trade up to 1, even though it'll cost 1 extra pick. But sorry about that, guys. I muted real quick just to read something. But just reading a Panthers Twitter guy. But here I think is a good spot for a guy like Quentin Johnston, a wide receiver, just in general a wide receiver, because do they have a picture? They do. And I'm going to have Quentin Johnston go here. I think he'll maybe fall to the end of the first, maybe even early second, very early second. But I think he's still a really good receiver. I mean, in the combine, we saw when he was in getting passes from the quarterbacks that he can go up and get the ball. He is a guy that I knew because he's 6'4", I mean, and very athletic and very fast. I knew there was just no way that he couldn't do that he couldn't be a possession receiver. But he can. I mean, he's 6'4", he's very athletic, and he can be a very good possession receiver for any team that takes him. And he can spread the field too. I mean, he's a very good wide receiver overall. Washington, I think here is another spot for our next cornerback. Cornerback's going off the board here in this mock draft for me, a little bit slower, but I think that they could use a cornerback. They need a cornerback, and I mean, he'll come in and be a very good player for you instantly, and he's going to be a replacement, a good replacement for was it Michael? No, not Michael Jackson. What was his name? Something Jackson, the third. And yeah, I mean Christian Gonzalez is going to be a top wide receiver, cornerback off the board, and he might even go in the top 10 even, I would say. But on to the Steelers. The Steelers, I think this is a good spot for another O-lineman. I also think this is a good spot for a other position like cornerback, O-line, as I said, interior or outside. O'Cyrus Torrence had a really good day too at the combine, and he's somebody that I see possibly going to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, if they don't, well, actually, I'll talk more about Jacksonville when I get to the Jacksonville pick. This isn't a Jacksonville or Carolina mock draft, so. But here, I think they go with. I'm going to have them go Broderick Jones. They get a tackle, very good young tackle, and Broderick Jones. He's going to be a very good player at the next level, and he'll come in and I mean I don't know who their left tackle is or if he's better than Broderick Jones would be, but I think that Broderick Jones, that's the best spot for him to go. And yeah. The Lions, the Detroit Lions. This is a spot where a cornerback would actually be really good. They got Jalen Carter. You can go out and get a guy like Brian Branch, but I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr. here. A very good cornerback who's going to be a very good number one cornerback. He's going to be good to have across from Jeff Okudah, and they have a very solid cornerback room. But Amani Oruwariye is a free agent, and this allows you to not have to re-sign him. And you go out and you replace him with a guy who's probably going to be, or not probably, he will be better than him, most likely. And I'm hoping he will, because I'm a pretty big fan of him. I think that is a very good pick. Now, the Buccaneers. This is a spot where if either any of the top 4 QBs drop, I could see them going. I can see them going with a QB later on. I also could see them being a top pick next year and getting a QB next year. But yeah, I am gonna personally go here with I keep getting distracted by Twitter. I'm watching Twitter constantly because I'm waiting to see if, like, at any moment this week there could be a drop of a actual trade in real life for the Panthers or just for anybody. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, all that different kind of stuff. But for Tampa Bay, I'm gonna go and get them a guy who can be. I'm going to go Kalijah Kancey. Had a really good week at the Combine. Had a very good Combine, and I think that he'll be a first rounder. Maybe not, though, at the same time. I mean, he had a really good Combine, but he's a guy who could end up being like Aaron Donald, because he's around that same size. He's a shorter interior defensive lineman, and he's a very good one at that. I mean, he tested out really well. He can be a very good player. And I think he would be really good to put alongside Vita Vea. I mean, you get Vita Vea, who's a run stopper, but then you get Kalijah Kancey, who's probably going to just mostly rush the quarterback, but can also probably stop the run a little bit. I haven't watched too much film on him, but mostly only seen the Combine. Seahawks. Seahawks here, I think, is a possible spot for O'Cyrus Torrence, because they got their two tackles. Now they just need to get some interior help, which would help them out a lot. And O'Cyrus Torrence is a possibility here. I'm not gonna go him here. I think they also could use some help still on defense, and I'm actually going to go Bryan Bresee, a guy who before was somebody that they could pick at number 5, but now you get Bryan Bresee and Tyree Wilson. You pick two, just like last year, you pick 2 offensive linemen. Now you get 2 defensive linemen who can really help you. I mean, Bryan Bresee on the inside, Tyree Wilson on the inside or the outside, and they're going to be both really good players for the if the Seahawks were to draft both of them. I mean, even if they don't go to the Seahawks, they're both going to be probably decent. Obviously, skip over the Dolphins. On to the Chargers. With the Chargers, I think this is a spot for a tackle, possibly somebody that they could get across for Rashawn Slater. I also think that this is a spot for a wide receiver. I think they could definitely use a guy, and I'm going to go Zay Flowers. Gives them a deep ball kind of guy. I mean, he can spread the field with speed, whereas you have Mike Williams on the other side, who can spread the field with his jump ball abilities. He's a possession big receiver that's also a deep threat, and can jump over receivers and or cornerbacks and take the ball away from him because of his size. Ravens could have another first round pick this year as well, depending on if like the Falcons. I mean, I saw something apparently that the Falcons aren't going to actually pursue him or Lamar, but I mean, in a way, I could still see them going after Lamar. But if they do end up just keeping Lamar for at least this year, because on that franchise tag, I could see him just sitting out the entire year, pulling a Deshaun Watson in a way. But at the same time, maybe I probably don't. But I think here then I'm gonna go with a receiver to help them out here. Give a guy to Lamar, another guy for him to throw to, a very good guy in Jordan Addison, who's going to be a pretty good wide receiver. Some things surprised me. I didn't think he was going to be as slow as he was at the combine, but he still had some pretty good. I mean, he had a really good catch when he was running across the field. And yeah, he's going to be a good weapon there for Lamar Jackson, or if they don't have him, somebody else. On to Minnesota. Minnesota, I think this is a spot where you could see them going. I mean, this is another cornerback spot for sure. Where are they? Where are some of the guys? I mean, Deonte Banks is a good player. Cam Smith. Kelee Ringo. I'm surprised he fell so far. I still think Kelee Ringo's probably a first-round guy. He's a guy, I mean, for Minnesota, they could play him outside. I mean, Patrick Peterson's a free agent. You have Cameron Dantzler and you have Andrew Booth, but I feel like one of those guys could still work better in the slot. Kelee Ringo, you don't want to have in the slot. And I think because I personally still see him as a first-round guy, I think I'm going to go Kelee Ringo here. Some people can argue with that, but I think he will be possibly a first-round guy, if not an early second guy. But going to the Minnesota, and now we're here at the Jaguars pick. Now this pick I was really excited for because there's two guys that I'm looking at that I would possibly go for here. I mean, there's actually a bunch. Anton Harrison. Say in this scenario we don't re-sign Jawaan Taylor. If they don't re-sign Jawaan Taylor, I think they have to probably use the 24th pick or trade up in the second round or trade up from the third round into the second round, so you have 2 second-rounders to go up and get an Anton Harrison, or to get a guy like Darnell Wright, Dawand Jones, Blake Freeland too is a really good player. I mean, he had a really good draft. Cody Mock. There's some really good players here. But I definitely think here you could go them or O'Cyrus Torrence. And I think here I'm going to go in this scenario, or there's another guy here would be a really good player for them to have, Brian Branch. I mean, he would be a very good player for them to pick up. I mean, he's that guy. He didn't have the best combine, but he's still a player that I see going in the first round, maybe even way before the Jags get to pick. The Jags also could trade up, so they could still get him, but the Jags, he would be a really good player. He would help them in the slot. I mean, he would give them that slot guy, a slot corner, a nickel corner / safety, and I think he would be a really good fit. He's somebody that I look at too, and that's why this pick is tough, because it's him. And they could still use edge if they don't sign a third edge in free agency. I could see Will McDonald, the fourth, being a guy that they take. Felix Anudike Uzoma. B.J. Ojulari, I still think is a guy that they could go for here at this pick. And just because of purely where it is, I think I'm going to have them trade down to 28 with the Bengals. I think doing this, you can get a third rounder with it. And I mean, that's a good thing, because then you can use that third rounder to help you trade up in the second round if you need to. But yeah, Bengals trade up. I think here this is a good spot. If they end up cutting Joe Mixon, Bijan Robinson is a good pick. Tight end would also be a very good pick. And that's actually what I'm going to do here. I'm going to change it up who my first tight end is. I'm going to go Dalton Kincaid. Very good tight end out of Utah. I mean, some people have him as the top tight end in their class. I think he definitely could be. I mean, he looks really good on the film that Daniel Jeremiah like kind of analyzed while they were at the combine. He looked really good as a receiver and a blocker. But yeah, they get that tight end. They don't need to go out and overpay Hayden Hurst then. But on to the Giants. And the Giants recently re-signed Daniel Jones and franchise tagged Saquon Barkley at the deadline for franchise tags just 30 minutes ago or so. I mean, just recently, very recently, just before I started this. And I think now you go out and get guys that can help Daniel Jones. I mean, a receiver like Josh Downs would be really good. Jalen Hyatt's dropped a bit, but he's still a pretty good receiver. But yeah, I mean, you can go out and get that. You can get a tight end. I mean, I'm going to get Michael Mayer, actually. I mean, it might not seem like they need tight. I think tight end would be really good for them to draft. I mean, you get Michael Mayer, who's a do-it-all kind of tight end. He's not a fast tight end, but he's still a receiving tight end that can be really good for you. And I think that would be a really good. I mean, it's not receiver, but you still have decent receivers. Not the best, but Michael Mayer would give you somebody that the defenses will have to take it. And he might be a mismatch, too, against some people. I mean, they'll have to account for him. But on to the Cowboys. With the Dallas Cowboys next pick, or with their pick, I think I gotta go with a guy. I mean, so they need a wide receiver. They definitely need to get a guy across from CeeDee Lamb to help out a bit. Defensive interior, I think it's too early to go a defensive interior guy. Linebacker, I mean, I guess they could use linebacker, probably a little bit too early, though, to go. I mean, Jack Campbell and Drew Sanders, Trenton Simpson. I mean, there's some really good linebackers in here, actually, that they could definitely go for. And I think here, though, I'm going to have them go. I mean, Brian Branch is still here. I'm going to have them go Brian Branch. He's a guy who they can play at slot, like I said, or safety, which Donovan Wilson is a free agent. Malik Hooker, who's their other safety, I don't think is, but he would be a solid pickup for them. And yeah, I mean, helps their defense out. They need help on defense and offense. They could also, I expect them to probably sign or trade for a wide receiver, probably two, this offseason. I mean, possibly D-Hop, maybe sign Odell, like there was rumors about in the regular season. But yeah, on to the Bills. The Bills now have, at 27, I think this is a spot where you could see a guy like O'Cyrus Torrence go. They need help on the interior offensive line. I'm actually going to go, whoa, what just happened? I just moved my thing down and it did everything. I'm actually going to go Michael Smith, a very good, I didn't even realize he was really good until I watched the Combine, and also Daniel Jeremiah talked about him. He is a really good player, and I think he could be the first interior offensive lineman taken. Probably not, though, at the same time, but I could see him being the first center taken. Now, back to the Jags. They traded back. They can still get their guy. Deonte Banks, I forgot that he was available. Deonte Banks, he's a guy, too, that I could see them taking. I mean, he can be a guy that they can play in the slot. He could be a really good slot player for them. Also, he's a guy who could eventually be moved to the outside in the future. If he pans out, you can move him to the outside eventually when Darius Williams is gone. And I think that would be a really good pickup for them. I do think they need help defensively, but also I think offensively there's still trade up situations. I think that you could do. They just need. I don't know where I was going with that, but I think that they need help defensively still. Cornerback would be. They still need help there. Safety. Antonio Johnson is somebody that I look at for. Is there really not that? Oh no, it's just lagging. Antonio Johnson, Jamie Robinson. Yeah, there's mostly Antonio Johnson out of these safeties I could see, because he's a guy that you can play at slot, a bigger guy. He can guard those tight ends for you a little bit better than the smaller slots could. Deonte Banks is also, I believe, 6'2", so he could do that as well. And it's very tempting to go defense, because I think the Jags could really use going defense here. But I think I'm going to go offense here, and I'm going to go interior offensive line, and I'm going to go O'Cyrus Torrence. I also really like going for O'Cyrus Torrence because he had a really good combine, and it would be really good to structure, have that a strong O-line in front of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if you get O'Cyrus Torrence, he could be a really good player right away. Plug him in at left guard. Then you have Cam Robinson, if he's back and healthy and playing good. You have him, you have O'Cyrus Torrence, you have Luke Fortner, you have Brandon Sheriff, and then if you do bring back Jawaan Taylor, I'd still think O'Cyrus Torrence would be a good pick. Or if you go out and pick a guy like Anton Harrison, DeJuan Jones, Darnell Wright, you could have them at right tackle. And I think here you gotta at some point go with a guy who can play right tackle for you if you don't re-sign Jawaan Taylor. And I think there's a trade-up coming possibly then. But on to the Saints. The Saints, they got Derek Carr now. Now they just need some other help. They could use here it says QB. That I don't think they still need QB. Still too early, in my opinion, for any interior guys. Cornerback, it says. Actually, they could use cornerback. I could see them going cornerback, and I think Deonte Banks would be really good. Cam Smith. I think here, maybe tight end. Tight end is solid. I think here I'm going to go Deonte Banks. Deonte Banks doesn't fall anymore. I think this is a good spot for him, though. I think maybe they had him ranked like 18 or whatever. That's a solid rank, but I think he still goes either early first or late first. Late first, early second. I said early first. Definitely not early first. Maybe, though. Somebody reach. But yeah. On to the Eagles. They really have wide receiver as their number one need. They still have Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. I mean, they could use a slot receiver, but JSN's gone, and I don't think Josh Downs is an outside guy who spreads the field. I think here, though, is a good spot. I mean, Miles Sanders, they might re-sign, but I think Bijan Robinson's going to be a first-rounder, and I'm going to do this. They draft Bijan Robinson, don't bring back Miles Sanders. They get their guy in Bijan, and he's going to be a really good player to have alongside Jalen Hurts, and he'll be a very good running back for you. I can't believe I almost had him go out of the first round, but it's mostly because normally you don't see them running backs taken in the first round too much, but unless they're really good like Bijan or Travis Etienne or Najee Harris. But yeah, Kansas City now. Kansas City, this is a spot where I could see a guy like Josh Downs going. I mean, just a bunch of guys that I could see going here. I mean, they recently released Frank Clark, Will McDonald's here, Felix Enrique Uzoma. I think here is a spot, though, because they have a bunch of wide receivers going to the free agency. I definitely think they'll re-sign some of them. I think here you got to go with I think I'm gonna go with. You could also see that if they don't get Orlando Brown, which it seems like they might not, I'm gonna go Anton Harrison, and he's gonna play left tackle for them. They get that guy if they don't bring Orlando Brown back, which it seems like they might not because they didn't tag him, but that's also probably a strategy to be able to negotiate with him in a different way because they can't afford him on the franchise tag. So they let him go, possibly bring him back. I'm not sure. Um, uh, but yeah, I am going to. Has very likely played his last game in Shelby. Oh, David Montgomery might have played his last game in a uniform as the as a Bear player. But now we're into the second round. The Steelers have a second pick already. With this pick, I'm going to go with I'm gonna go with actually who did I take earlier? Broderick Jones or Broderick Jones. You get Broderick Jones. You get a left tackle. I still think they could use help at the other tackle, and you go DeJuan Jones. So in one draft, you get both your guys. DeJuan Jones, a very good guy, a very good tackle. I mean, he's 6'8". He's gonna be a beast. I mean, speed rushers might give him a little bit of trouble right away, but he's gonna be such a beast at 6'8". I would love for him to go to Jacksonville or even Carolina, even though Carolina has their tackles both set. I always bring my favorite teams into this stuff because there's a lot of players that I like, and I really like talking about my favorite teams, even though this is a mock draft for all teams. But yeah, Texans again. Texans, who did I go with? I went with Myles Murphy with their second pick. Yes, I did. Okay. So here then, I say is a spot for a wide receiver such as Josh Downs, a guy that you can get, and he'll be solid for you. But also, there's a lot of good tight ends in this class. There's a lot of them. Wait, I feel like I'm missing. Wait, no, Luke Musgrave is right there. I was gonna say. Okay, I think I'm seeing all the tight ends actually. Now that I think about it, for a second there, I thought there was some missing, but no. There's an basically here I think is a spot. Tight end actually could be a decent pick for them. But also wide receiver, you could use a wide receiver. I'm gonna go Josh Downs here. Solid spot for him. Goes there. A guy who can, I mean, Anthony Richardson can definitely drop in some dimes to him. He's gonna be a pretty speedy downfield guy. For the Texans, and he'll be a day one starter, I believe there. A guy who can also replace Brandon Cooks if they eventually get rid of him. On to the Cardinals. The Cardinals have. So I took Will Anderson earlier. Here I think is a spot for either O lineman. Apparently they are actually going to release. Apparently they are planning on releasing. I'm brain farting. Rodney Hudson, and they already released Robbie Anderson. So you could see them go Joe Tippmann, an interior guy in general. Cody Mauch actually did some reps at the Senior Bowl at center, which surprises me kind of. O-line they definitely need help with, mostly on the interior. I think this would be a little bit too early for these other centers. The only center I feel like is John Michael Schmitz that could be picked this high. Steve Avila they definitely could use actually too. Steve Avila is a solid player. But they do actually need cornerback as well still. And I'm actually gonna go Cam Smith. They get 2 guys on defense so far, which is the side of the ball that might actually be the more needy side for the Cardinals. I think they need stuff on both sides of the ball, but I think that either way, that solidifies the defense a little bit more. Cam Smith is a little bit of a developmental guy. That's why he's not projected in the first round, or he's not ranked in the top 32 anymore, but I still think he's a very good cornerback. The Colts. They got their QB. They could use some O-linemen. They could use a tackle. I think here is a spot for, any of these tackles here. Also, honestly, I think, Yannick Ngakoue is a free agent. If they can't re-sign him, or if they're not planning on, I think there's a lot of guys here that you could go for, and I'm going to have them go Will McDonald. Will McDonald goes off the board. He's a solid player. He's going to be really good, I feel like, in the NFL, and he ends up going to the Colts. They get that edge rusher. He's going to help them out a lot, especially if they don't bring, even if they bring back Yannick Ngakoue. You could use a guy across from Yannick Ngakoue that could be really good. But the Rams first pick. This is definitely O-line territory. And it says O-line because they in general need O-line help. And this is a spot where I could see Darnell Wright going. I'm going to go Steve Avila, though. I think Steve Avila is a very good interior guy. He's another guy that I could see Jacksonville going in the later rounds if they don't feel like they can get Zed guy or whatever in the first, or if they can't get O'Cyrus Torrence in the first. On to the Seahawks. I think you could actually see them going a guy like a Tanner McKee, because they could still probably use a quarterback maybe to put behind Geno Smith and develop. Tanner McKee is not the best in this class, but he's decent. There is, doesn't give that big of a list of needs. I drafted D-line, 2 D linemen. It says they could use some interior, I guess. Interior, Andrew Voorhees tore his ACL, which is not good for him, but also I still think he's a solid player. I'm actually going to go Jarrett Patterson. He had a pretty good combine. He's a very good player. Notre Dame's always it seems like had pretty good O-linemen, and Liam Eichenberg hasn't been too good, but he's been decent, pretty decent. So you get Jarrett Patterson, and yeah, you get Jarrett Patterson, you get that interior guy who you've been looking at. I was thinking about O'Cyrus Torrence here at 20, but you get still a solid player in Jarrett Patterson at number 37. Now on to the Raiders. The Raiders got Will Levis. This is a spot where I could see a offensive lineman going. But actually, I've heard some talks of a trade possibly happening. And I'm actually going to have the Jags trade up from number... Is that too much? I wonder if that would be too much. I need to have like a chart pulled up showing me the value of certain picks. I feel like maybe that would be a little bit too much. But at the same time, that is a really early second round pick. Let me real quick pull up a chart here. This guy has a link to it. So basically, the value of, Jacksonville, the 38th pick is 520 value, and the Jags pick is 340, and then the pick 92 would be 132, so that would be under 500 of value. so that'd actually be too little. But then the Jags' actual pick in the 3rd round, pick 88, be 150, which would make 500. Okay, well then I think that, and then maybe 7th from another year would probably be fine to trade up. Maybe that's still a little bit too much, but I'm having Jacksonville trade up here into the second, up further in the 2nd round. And the reason I'm doing that is, in this instance, we're having them not bring back, or we're playing this out as if they're not bringing back Jawaan Taylor. So I'm actually going to have them go Darnell Wright to play their right tackle. Darnell Wright, very good player. I'm surprised the PFF has him rated so low. Very good player coming out of Tennessee. Had a pretty good Senior Bowl. Had a decent combine, and I think he's going to be a day 2 pick at some point. I mean, whether it's early or late, I think he's going to be a day 2 pick. And there's a reason I wasn't having him go, because there's some teams here that would draft him, but at the same time not necessarily. And I think, especially if they don't bring back Jawaan Taylor, they got to get a guy like Darnell Wright or Anton Harrison or somebody that can help them out. And also, you could play Walker. He could also just be your swing. I mean, you could have Walker Little play either right or left tackle. I mean, you could have Walker Little and Cam Robinson battle it out at left tackle, and then if Walker Little wins that, you could have Darnell Wright start at right tackle for you then. And then Cam Robinson would kind of be that swing tackle, even though he's mostly better at left. But yeah, you get a pretty good guy in Darnell Wright with that pick. On to the Panthers. Back to the Panthers. This is a spot where I think it's got to be a tight end. I mean, I'm thinking they could easily go out and get Dalton Schultz or Mike Gesicki, get a receiving tight end, which they need pretty badly. But there's a bunch of good tight ends here. I mean, Luke Musgrave, mostly a receiving guy, coming off some injuries though. Sam Laporta is a guy who can overall be really good. I mean, the Iowa tight ends are always so good. And then obviously Darnell Wright, who's a beast. I mean, I really want Darnell Wright to go to Carolina or Jacksonville because he's going to be so good. And also, there are some edges, actually, now that I think about it. There are edges. And that's another big need for Carolina. And there's 2 really good ones here. I mean, the Northwestern edge rusher is really good too. But I'm looking at B.J. Ojulari and Felix Uzomah. And it's very hard because both are very big needs. We need a guy across from Brian Burns, but we also need a receiving tight end. And that's why I think I'm going to have them go B.J. Ojulari. I'm going B.J. Ojulari here. He's a speed rusher. He's going to be a guy who's going to be a little bit developmental, but he's going to be really good for you. He's going to give you a guy. Hopefully he's not a bust like YGM, your Gross Mottos. I was really excited for him because I'm a Penn State fan coming out of college and going to the Panthers, but he hasn't turned out. So hopefully getting B.J. Ojulari, you can get a guy who will turn out for you. But yeah, and then I'm actually going to do a trade. Wait, I have to be at the pick. Okay, never mind then. There's actually another trade coming, and it's going to involve the Panthers trading up again in the 2nd round this time. But yeah, here at the Saints pick, I think now this is a place where with them, I think they actually maybe could use edge because Marcus Davenport is a free agent, I believe, and they might not re-sign him, so they could maybe use a guy like Felix Uzomah, and I think that they actually end up going with Mazi Smith here. I'm going with Mazi Smith for them. Gives them a guy on the interior along with Cam Jordan, who's getting up there in age. So Mazi Smith could eventually develop to replace him and be your new number 1 interior rusher. But as I said, I mean, you can't right now. You can use him in the interior alongside Cam Jordan. and that would be a decent duo. I mean, he might not start necessarily, depending on who else you have. But yeah, on the Titans, and here I think is actually a spot. I said Hendon Hooker earlier, and actually that's who I'm going with. I'm going with Hendon Hooker. Even with that injury, I still think he's the number 5 QB in my opinion. And if in my draft class, he would be the number 5 QB. I personally have the QBs ranked: CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, or even like Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young switched now, but I still probably would say Bryce Young above Anthony Richardson. But yeah, and then Hendon Hooker at number 5 after Will Levis. Onto the Browns, who are actually, I saw something today, who are looking for a deep ball threat to give Deshaun Watson and put next to Amari Cooper. And Jalen Hyatt didn't have the best combine, but I'm gonna go Jalen Hyatt. I think that Jalen Hyatt would be a very good player for them to pick up. 2 Tennessee Titans in a row. Jalen Hyatt's still a really good receiver in my opinion. I mean, a really good route runner. A deep ball threat who's going to give you exactly what they need. So if they don't sign a guy, you can just draft a guy, because there's a decent amount of those guys in this draft. On to the Jets. The Jets, I feel like here, this is their first pick in this draft. I haven't actually taken any linebackers now that I think about it. And I'm gonna go Drew Sanders here first as the first guy off the board. I completely forgot how many good linebackers there are in this class, and I've focused on other positions. You get Drew Sanders. He's a guy who can run off the edge, but he's kind of like a Frankie Louvu. He's a guy who can, I think he's a little bit more like a guy who can be an off-ball linebacker and cover, but also I think he's a guy who can rush pretty well. But yeah, he's a really good linebacker. Him and Jack Campbell are very good. You also have Trenton Simpson as well in this class, who's really good. Diane Henley is really good as well. Noah Sewell's he's not as high as people had him before, but he's still a decent player. But yeah, have them go on him. Now here. Well, actually, no, not here. Next here with the Falcons, another spot where a possible receiver could go. I'm going to have them go, though, because they need linebacker. And this linebacker class is pretty good. I'm going to have them go Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. I think Trenton Simpson's still a late first, early second kind of guy. He's dropped to the mid-second round, and if you're the Falcons, you're really liking that you got him, because he's a good player. I mean, he's an off-ball linebacker. He can also be the middle linebacker for you. You can pick where you want him, but he's a very good linebacker in general and a very good player for you. He's going to be a very good player for you. Now here at the Packers pick, I'm going to have the Carolina Panthers trade up, give up their 3rd and a 4th from next year to trade up to number. Well, actually, let's do. Would that be? That's a big drop for the Packers. I mean, maybe this wouldn't happen, but also maybe it would, because 1 second here. So pick 45 is 450 value. Yeah, pick 93 isn't gonna have too much value. Actually, never mind. I'll wait to do a trade. Okay, here then, I'm going to have them go. So I haven't gone tight end with them. So I'm actually going to go a good tight end in Luke Musgrave. He's going to be a little bit developmental and also injury. You got to watch out for those. But he's somebody that I also really want to go to Carolina or Jacksonville, even if Jacksonville, even with bringing back Evan Ingram, if he's not long term, go get Luke Musgrave. I mean, he's going to be a solid player in the NFL. On to the Patriots. The Patriots, I could see going tackle here. I'm going to have them going Matthew Bergeron. They get a guy, I don't know, Cole Strange, I don't know what position they play him at, or if he played at all this year, but Cole, you get a guy to add into that offensive line with David Andrews. They're also losing Trent Brown, somebody I think that is a free agent of theirs, I'm not sure. But you get a Matthew Bergeron, who's a guy who can be a swing tackle, he can start for you. He's going to be a solid player, had a really good combine, and that's why he's so high on PFF's board. On to the Commanders now. The Commanders, I think, is a spot for a linebacker, and I'm going to have them go Deion Henley. Had a really good combine. I think he's going to be a very good player, and he ends up going here to the Washington Commanders. You get him to play him along with Jamin Davis, who seems like they probably reached on a little bit. But you get a guy in Deion Henley, and he's going to be a solid linebacker for you. Alright, so what... Okay, people have Kalijah Cansey going here, Drew Sanders. I could see that happening. So what have I done with them? So I went Joey Porter, and then I went Jalen Carter. So I think here you get a guy in the middle. You go out and get a guy in the middle then. Actually, yeah, you go out and get a guy in the middle. That's not the middle. In the middle in Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell's another guy who I really want to go to Carolina or Jacksonville. But, or not Jacksonville, mostly Carolina, because Carolina could use a linebacker like him in their offense, or on their defense, because they need, Shaq Thompson might be gone, and he might not return if we release him, to save some, or get some cap room, but yeah, get Jack Campbell, a solid player. He's going to be a pretty good linebacker. He kind of reminds me of Luke Kuechly. I mean, he could be a really good player like Luke Kuechly. But yeah, on to the Steelers. Now, the Steelers, I went with earlier. I went with DeJuan Jones. Yeah, I went with 2 offensive tackles. And so here, I could see them going maybe an interior guy, just to help out with the interior part of the O-line. I could also see them going... Cornerback is actually a big need. Emmanuel Forbes still here. Garrett Williams, Eli Ricks, Julius Brents, Clark Phillips. All very good cornerbacks. And I think I'm going to have them go... Emmanuel Forbes. There's some questions with his size and weight, but he's still going to be... I mean, he's still going to be a solid cornerback. He's going to be a pretty good cornerback. I mean, he's long, lengthy. He's going to be able to still cover pretty well, I'm assuming. But yeah. On to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I went with Kalijah Cansey before. Now, with them, they definitely could use tight end. And honestly, it's actually tempting. Sam Laporta would be a solid tight end. Darnell Wright. But I'm not gonna have them go tight end. They could use interior. I'm gonna have them go. Could also use tackle maybe. I'm actually here gonna have them go Cody Mauch. Cody Mauch's a very versatile O lineman, as we saw at the Senior Bowl. You can play him at tackle like he's going to be listed at, but you can also move him into guard. He's going to be a very versatile, very good, very highly sought after offensive lineman in this draft class, and I'm going to have him go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. On to the Seahawks. The Seahawks again already? Jeez. They got a lot of picks for Russell Wilson. This one I think is their actual pick, though. But yeah, Seattle Seahawks. I think this is actually a trade-up spot for the Carolina Panthers. Trading up to 51. What is the value of these picks? 51 is worth 390, and 93 is worth 128. I think maybe, yeah, give up a 4th rounder next year. No, give up a give up a 4th rounder next year, and then I think maybe that's good. For now, we'll do that. I mean, not too much, but not too little. But yeah, trading up, the Panthers are here to go and get a, I mean, they could, tight end is who I'm looking at here, Darnell Washington and Sam Laporta. Linebackers, I mean, right now there's not too many, not this again. There's not too many linebackers right now. I mean, Noah Sewell maybe, but not really. We got B.J. Ojulari earlier. Cornerback is somebody they definitely could use a little bit. Running back maybe Jahmyr Gibbs is a solid player that I would love for them to get. But I'm gonna go here with tight end, and I'm gonna have them go Darnell Washington. I think Sam Laporta or Darnell Washington would be very good for them. Darnell Washington to Carolina gives you a 6'7" or just about 6'7" beast at tight end, and I think that this would be a very good pick for them. You get, I mean, so far you get C.J. Stroud, you get B.J. Ojulari, you get Darnell Washington, and you're looking really good. I mean, you're covering some of those needs right now. On to the Miami Dolphins, which here is a cornerback spot where I am going to go a guy in Tyrique Stevenson. Had a pretty decent combine. I really liked his combine, the way he played. He did really good. Transferred from Georgia, I think it was. I think he transferred there from Georgia. So he's a pretty good player, and he's gonna have he's gonna be solid, taken probably quite early, maybe the 2nd round like I just took him. But we'll see. On to the Chargers. The Chargers, I went with Zay Flowers earlier. So you get that deep threat, that speedy deep threat. I think here you could still go. I'm going to go actually Blake Freeland. Had a really good combine. I really liked his combine. I have him a lot higher than 105 rank. I have him higher ranked than 105. I don't actually have my own big board, but personally I would have him higher than 105. So I'm going to have him go to the Chargers. He's going to be a guy who could be a day 1 starter. I mean, coming from BYU. You also had Brady Christensen come from BYU. Had a really good year this past year at Carolina. But Blake Freeland, he can be your guy if you want him. I mean, you could probably even move him inside too if you really needed to. On to the Bears. So with the Bears so far, I've had them take Paris Johnson. Yes, that's it. But they got some draft capital in the next couple of years. Now here, you actually get a guy still. I don't think Felix will drop this far. You get a guy in Felix, you get that edge rusher. You still get a solid edge rusher. Rather than getting, like, Will Anderson's better, that's for sure, but you still get a solid guy. And Felix Ndwike Zoma out of Kansas State. The Lions, jeez, the Lions have a lot of picks. They've had like 2 picks, I almost feel like, here. But, yeah, Jack Campbell. So I went linebacker, cornerback, and interior defensive line. So here, I think I've addressed a lot of needs, but offensively, I think, I mean, this is hard because it's like, well, actually, I think I'm going to go, I'm going to go Jamie Robinson, change it up, not have Antonio Johnson go. They get safety. I mean, this has been all defense for them, and I think that's good because, I mean, their defense was mostly the problem this past year in terms of trying to keep up with teams. So you get your dressing defense, you get help on defense, and then you're going to be way better having with all the offensive weapons that you still have. On to the Raiders, who traded back with the Jags for me, and the Jags went and got Darnell Wright with that pick at pick 38. Now here for the Raiders, definitely could use O-line, interior or offensive tackle, just in general O-linemen. And I'm going to have them go with, they could also use, they could definitely use some cornerback help. And I believe I've gone with, I went with, yeah, Will Levis so far. I think that's the only pick that I've got done with them. And check out the analysis. I mean, Eli Ricks actually would be a solid pick for them. That would actually be a solid pick. And that's actually who I'm going to go with. Eli Ricks, I don't think participated at the Combine. But Eli Ricks, solid player out of Alabama. Surprised he came out, actually. But he's still going to be a second or first round pick. And he's going to be a solid player coming out of Alabama. Panthers, let's go. Teams that reportedly will not pursue. Field Yates just tweeted, teams that reportedly will not be pursuing a deal for Lamar Jackson include Falcons, Dolphins, Panthers. Let's go. Panthers aren't being stupid then. Commanders and Raiders. I'm happy about that because Panthers shouldn't be going after him. They should be trying to trade up right now. But on to the Giants. The Giants, I picked Michael Mayer first. Here, I don't think there's too many wide receivers. I mean, Nathaniel Dell, Michael Wilson. Rashee Rice would actually be pretty good for them to get. Actually, I'm going to go Rashee Rice. He's more of a taller receiver, more of a possession guy, but he's a downfield threat still. And you get two guys on offense for Daniel Jones to help you out a bit. That's going to be nice for him, especially still having Saquon too, and getting Daniel Jones back. So their offense looking pretty good after this. The Cowboys now, with the 58th pick. Here, so I went with Brian Branch. Here I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with, I think they maybe could use, I'm going to go with the edge rusher out of Northwestern who had a really good combine in, I'm not going to pronounce his name, but Northwestern edge rusher. I mean, they maybe don't necessarily need one. DeMarcus Lawrence, though, is getting up there in age. He can be a guy who can come in, and he can probably be a rotational guy at first, but eventually once DeMarcus Lawrence is gone, either because they release him or he's just not producing anymore, so they let him walk, or he retires. You get a guy who can replace him, but can also be a rotational piece for now. And yeah, on to the Buffalo Bills, who I know I went John Michael Schmitz with their first pick, and here I'm going to go with a defensive back in well, actually, I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs fallen this far. Jahmyr Gibbs is a very good running back. I think he could go way earlier. than this. I think he could be an early first, early second, late first. I said it again, early first. I meant early second, late first. And I think that would be a very good player. I mean, you get a guy who can be their guy. That's the thing. They've always been trying to get all the good running backs in each draft are always taken just before them. And you get your guy in Jahmyr Gibbs then, who's a very good player. And there's still a lot of solid players here left. On to the Bengals. I'm going to have a trade here. And it's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, if I can find them. I'm going to have the Jags trade up from 88 to 60. Give them one of the fourths from this year. And yeah, we'll do that. Trade up, get rid of. You still have a fourth round pick for the Jags at 121, but you basically get 2 first. Here, I think is there's a bunch of players that I traded up, or the reason I traded up for. Tight end is still a choice, even with Evan Ingram coming back. Wide receiver too. A.T. Perry, somebody I look at for them. Because they mostly need a possession wide receiver. I don't know why quarterback's there. O-line set. Cornerback is still somebody I see. Julius Brents, Clark Phillips are my 2 main guys there. And then Antonio Johnson at safety. I mean, there's a lot of guys here that I see they could go with. Edge is somebody, maybe one of these edges I could see them also maybe going with, because if they don't sign an edge, they could use an edge still. Linebacker said I don't need to look at linebacker. Defensive interior, actually they could look at going for somebody. I mean, maybe Siaka Ika. I don't necessarily like him the most, but or Gervin Dexter didn't have the best combine, but still a solid player. But yeah, so I say probably tight end and Sam Laporta, somebody you look at if Evan Ingram's not the long-term answer. Julius Brents, Clark Phillips are 2 guys I look at as well. Can't get the lid back on. There we go. Antonio Johnson, as I said, as well. And then edge possibly 2. Probably not, though. But yeah, I think it's mostly between Sam Laporta, Antonio Johnson, and Julius Brents for me. Or Clark Phillips. I really do like Clark Phillips as well. Very good slot cornerback, and that's who they need. Or that's what they need. Oh, and I think here you gotta go with. It's hard because there's a bunch of good players here. I mean, Antonio Johnson dropped a bit, but Antonio Johnson is so good, though. I mean, he would give you the hybrid just like Brian Branch, but maybe even a little bit better because tight ends are being used in the slot a lot more, and he would be able to cover him. And then Julius Brents is a guy who can mostly play outside for you. He's mostly going to be an outside guy because I believe he's a bigger cornerback. And, yeah, I think that would be a very good spot for him to go. Sam Laporta, too, though, is a guy that I could see them going after. I mean, he would give you depth. Antonio Johnson as well is somebody that I say you could go with. This is like a hard pick in general. But then Clark Phillips, he's a little bit smaller, but he's a guy who you could definitely use in the slot. He's definitely a guy that you could use in the slot. And I think here, I mean, it's between those 4 who I just looked at. Those 4 are the players that I'm mostly looking at taking to the Jags here. And that's the reason I had them trade up. And that is because I am going to go with... It's a hard pick. I am going to go with, you addressed offense a lot, so I think here I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with Sam Laporta this time. This time I'm going Sam Laporta. It was a really hard choice between them all, but I'm going with Sam Laporta because he would be a very good player for them to get. He can be your long-term guy if you don't get a long-term deal done with Evan Ingram. When I do another mock draft, if there's a chance, if they sign Evan Ingram for a long-term deal, I'm probably not going to end up going. I could still go tight end because you could still use a guy behind him, but probably not until the later rounds. But for now, going Sam Laporta gives you a guy who's probably a long-term answer. But moving on to the Chicago here, this is where I'm going to go a cornerback, and I'm going to go Julius Brents. Gives them a guy along with Jalen Jones, I believe is who it is their guy, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Johnson, I think is his name. But you get Julius Brents, who's going to be a solid guy. Very tempted to take him to Jacksonville, even though he would be an outside guy. He could probably play slot, or you can move Darius Williams back into slot, which I don't think they would do, which is why Clark Phillips was really tempting. But you get Julius Brents, who's an outside guy. And here, I'm actually going to go Antonio Johnson. When I saw the trends, that's what made me decide to end up going Sam Laporta instead of Antonio Johnson, because now that I think about it, he would actually be a really good fit for the Eagles, because he's a guy that gives them a hybrid guy, another hybrid guy, just like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was. And yeah, I think that would be a really good fit. And for the last pick of this mock draft, I'm gonna go Nathaniel Dell. The Chiefs show that it doesn't matter who they pick, they will get a solid player, and it only shows the first round. But yeah, there's my mock draft out, everybody. This was a longer one because it was a 2-round mock draft. And yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys all